I think it's actually important that it's taking place, and it will make a difference. It will not do what we need to do to make the planet safe for ourselves and our children.
So, I mean, the problem we have here is there are some pretty striking absentees, such as China, who are, some of the world's biggest global polluters. In fact, we seem to export a lot of our own carbon footprints to the Far East. If they're not prepared to sit around the table, even though they have said they will put a strategy in place and are now ruminating on what that will be, then what's the use of the rest of the world sitting down to have a chinwag?
Well, we don't. I mean, if we never had conversations in which we couldn't start a conversation if everybody was there, we'd probably be a lot quieter, but we wouldn't necessarily be getting much done. I think there's a lot of more being made of the Chinese premier not being here than it warrants. He hasn't been out of his country since COVID started. He didn't even go to his own COP in China on biodiversity in person. I suspect we'll find he will turn up like other leaders will turn up on video making a contribution. And meanwhile, there'll be a very big Chinese delegation there, just like I suspect there'll be a big Russian and big other delegations. So you can exaggerate a little bit on the symbolics of it. What matters is what actually comes out at the end of the 2 weeks.
And how much, when it comes to shouldering the burden for saving the planet, how much needs to be determined by governments, how much needs to be shouldered by businesses, and how much comes down to the individual and how we manage our lifestyles?
There's no doubt at all. The thing that really matters is that governments put in place the right policies so that private capital can actually drive forward the energy transition that needs to take place. And they've got to be policies that are sympathetic to what business can do. They've got to be consistent. And you hear that time and again from the business community that what really troubles them are governments or politicians that chop and change their minds. So the bulk of it, particularly with power and transport, is going to be done with government. When we come to some of the more difficult areas where you've got lots of people having to make relatively small decisions, but which add up across millions of people into something significant, then it will fall to people to play a larger part. But everybody, I mean, what you see all over this country and indeed other countries is people who've really got the message that the climate is in trouble are doing things themselves already to try and make it better, not just in terms of their personal lifestyles, but also engaging with others in their community, doing things together with people. And that's the key message out of all of this. Nobody is going to solve this problem on their own. We've got to really work together. And that's really what the COP is symbolizing.
In terms of if you could come up with a wish list of targets, policies, agreements out of COP26, what would be the top few of that wish list?
The top of the wish list would be that, first of all, we keep our promises. We promise the emerging economies, the countries that are being most hit by a changing climate, we promised them $100 billion a year back in Paris, and we haven't delivered on that promise. So the first thing on my wish list is that we do that. We deliver on that $100 billion a year, dollars a year promise. The second thing on my wish list is that we increase the rate at which we're taking carbon out of the atmosphere. And the cheapest, best, and most effective way to do that is to invest in energy efficiency, which was sadly lacking, I have to say, in the recent budget from the Chancellor. But that is the way that not only do you do something good for the climate, you also do something to get people's bills down. And we're failing to do that. So that's not setting a very good example for the rest of the world. And then I think the third bit on my wish list, most of all, is that we now accelerate the rate at which we review the progress we're making. What makes this problem really difficult and very, very unusual in the whole of human history is we've not only got to get to the right place, which we know we can do, at least technologically, we've also got to get there by a specific time, or in effect, the policy will have failed. So it's what we do in the next 10 years that makes it possible for us to have got to net zero by the middle of the century. That really matters, and we've got to do a lot of it faster, which means we've got to meet and agree to do things more quickly than we're currently doing.